guide and lead you to its infinite sovereignty and hold you to its own. When we are true, we enjoy truly heavenly happiness, even if the whole world would be up against us. But if falsehood be reigning in our heart, we find the very hell raging hot within us, with all its horrors therein, in spite of our finding the whole world at our feet. Therefore, may truth and only truth be your guide, friend, and companion, is my blessing for you and yours. Meher Baba. Lord Meher, the biography of the Avatar of the Age, Meher Baba, Volume 7, Part 2. Bangalore, February-March 1940. Meher Baba's main work in Bangalore was with the God-intoxicated masts he gathered from different parts of southern India and elsewhere, and this intense work had direct and indirect connection with the war, which was beginning to spread worldwide. The most important advanced souls connected with Baba's work during this period of the war were the mental conscious masts Chadarwala, Chatti Baba, Phulwala, Mohammed, and the subtle conscious masts Shariat Khan, Ramshish and Chinna Swami. Precisely on Thursday, February 1st, 1940, as instructed, Swami Bhabhanand returned to the ashram in Bangalore after his pilgrimage to Rameshwaram in Ceylon. Bhabhanand narrated his experiences to Baba, who was happy he had carried out his instructions so faithfully. The next day, Baba sent him to Pandharpur, a sacred shrine to Vithoba, or Krishna, then to Upasni Maharaj at Sakori, to Narayan Maharaj at Kedgaon, and to the shrines of Hazrat Babajan in Poona and Sai Baba in Shirdi. Jokingly, Baba remarked, "This time you should go by train, but without a ticket, as I won't be able to pay you anything." Bhabhanand said that it would be cheating. Baba replied, "I am glad you said it. Yes, it would be cheating, but it would be all right if you would take each slap that you get for it cheerfully and enjoy it without feeling mentally the least hurt." Bhabhanand did not answer. Baba, however, did give him some money for the fare. Bhabhanand left, did as Baba directed him. In Pandharpur, he encountered M.D. Damali, called Babadas, who was spreading Meher Baba's message in the area. He was a resident of Nagpur and would travel from place to place spreading Meher Baba's name. Similarly, Vibhuti was doing the same in different parts of India since 1925. Gadikar was also visiting Pandharpur at the time. Taking Bhabhanand and Babadas with him, he returned to Sholapur and arranged a large meeting where both spoke. Wherever Gadikar's job took him, he would disseminate information about Meher Baba, and his love for Baba drew many people to the Master. After carrying out Baba's orders, Bhabhanand returned to Bangalore and stayed with the Mandalay. Meanwhile, Dr. Ghani was found weekly of India. After completing a puzzle, he would mail it in to enter the contest. 2 or 3 times he won small cash prizes which he kept a secret. Once, while Ghani was busy solving the weekly puzzle, Baba came to his room. Looking up, Ghani tried to hide the magazine, and Baba asked him, "What are you doing?" "Nothing," he replied. Baba walked over and took the magazine from under his mattress. Looking at it, Baba remarked, "What was there to hide? I will help you, and if we win, we will split the prize 50-50. I, too, need money." Quite seriously, Baba sat down and they began working out the crossword together. After solving it, Ghani mailed it. A week before the results were to be announced, Baba began asking Ghani about it daily. When the results were finally declared and the correct solution published, Ghani found that they had missed the prize by not less than 11 mistakes. Complaining to Baba, he said, "When I was solving the crosswords alone, there would be 2 or at the most 3 mistakes. Here there are 11. Baba replied, "So, you are still interested in solving such things? When I, in spite of being God, committed so many mistakes, you should realize that it is not easy to solve them and only gets you into more difficulties." Despite the war in Europe, Meher Baba continued to correspond with his Western lovers. His letters were a source of comfort and an inspiration to them during their separation from him. On February 10, 1940, he wrote to his Leila, Delia de Leon in England, "I know every inch of you. Realize me and you will know God. No other pursuit is worthwhile. When you have met the Beloved, everything then centers around Him. You see all beauty through Him, be it expressed through poetry, art, music, or through life itself. All work, whether of your hands or academic, is done for Him, and your only attachment is your Beloved. All service then becomes selfless, whether done for friends, family, or stranger. To please Him, the Beloved, is to know Him. There is no other knowing. Feeling is not knowing. To please me is to do, but to do what? That which your Beloved commands you. My way with you is the shortest way to union, which I long for infinitely more than you can ever long. Although the game is of my own making, still I must suffer to enjoy the game of my realizing myself consciously in all creation. But it is up to you, my loved ones, who know me in the flesh as none other can, to lessen this suffering and give me all the happiness of which you are capable. Will you do this for me? Help me in thought, word, and action. Let your thoughts be always of me, your words spring always from love, then your actions be expressive of one who seeks in all she does to please Him, who is ever present in the heart of his beloved Leila. This thought will give you eternal happiness and bliss in the midst of the sad times through which the world is now passing and must face up to. The suffering of all will be terrible, but remember underneath it are the everlasting arms. So keep happy in your faith and love to the very end. I will never fail you and never leave you." Katie and Gohar Irani's younger brother, Jal Russi, had come to Bangalore. At the time he was lean and slender, and one day he told Baba, "Make me big, Baba." Baba replied, "Stay here and I will. But the food here will make me even thinner," said Jal. So Baba arranged special food for him and asked Erich to dress himself like a waiter and serve him. Jal would take his food very pompously, sitting at a special table, not like the other men, a Mandalay who would eat sitting on a carpet on the floor, and Erich would serve him. But when Jal was eating, Baba would appear and remark, "Oh, you shouldn't eat that. It will make you thinner. Give it to Baidul and Gustaji." So Jal would give the item away. Thus, every day, just when Jal was about to eat his meal, Baba would appear and repeat the same thing. Jal was thinking himself something special to be treated with such deference by Baba and the others, but in reality he would go hungry. For a week Jal kept quiet. Then finally he told Baba, "You keep coming in when I am about to take my meals and make me give all the good dishes you've ordered to me to Baidul and Gustaji. Instead of growing bigger, I am losing weight." "Don't you worry, you will surely start gaining," Baba promised. Jal Russi stayed in Bangalore for a month, and despite the facilities afforded him, he learned how difficult it was to remain with Baba. Ghani also disliked the vegetarian food. One day he said to Poland, "Energetic creatures, their stomachs are never bloated, but the grass-eating bullock has a big stomach without the strength, power, and courage of the carnivores." "So," Ghani reasoned, "if the Mandalay become non-vegetarians, we will be strong like lions." Baba, however, pointed out, "The elephant is also a vegetarian, and just see how strong he is. Why don't you be like an elephant instead?" "But the elephant carries a big stomach," argued Ghani. "Then let your stomach also grow. Your stomach should be as big as your head, then you will look fine. So take plenty of vegetarian food while you're here," Baba concluded. Reporters would seek interviews with Meher Baba. At times he would consent and at times deny their request. On Sunday, February 11th, Baba consented to an interview with a newspaper reporter. The following is their dialogue. "Do you accept the principle now usually accepted in the West that science and religion deal with different spheres?" "It depends upon how it is understood," Baba stated. "If science deals only with material advancement, then such science would be said to have nothing of spirituality. But when the same science is expressed to make the meaning of life clear, then it is also a branch of spirituality, just as art, if expressed rightly, is spiritual, if expressed wrongly, material." "You mean scientific truths and principles are valid so far as they go and are to be fitted into with spiritual doctrine?" They can be fitted in. What is the gross world, after all, but the medium of realizing spirituality? For example, the body is purely material, physical, and gross. But it is the medium for the soul to know itself, provided it is dealt with and handled rightly. Otherwise, it becomes a hindrance to spiritual progress. Similarly, scientific principles and truths, if used rightly, help in the spiritual progress of the universe. But if improper use is made of them, they are bound to be a source of hindrance in the spiritual path. But what about astrology? Astrology is not part of science, the reporter asked. Baba spelled out, everything has something to do with spirituality. It depends on how it is worked out, and that again results in either advancing or retarding spiritual progress. Science is a general thing, while astrology is individual, so science itself cannot be proved to be wrong. If a truth is established scientifically, you do not think of doubting it. It does not occur to you to doubt it. If you are told that the earth is round, and if it is proved to you, you never think that it is flat. But if an astrologer tells you that you will get 1,000,000 rupees after some time, you will think of it 1,000,000 times. Spirituality has no room for doubts. For example, if someone were to ask me, "Are you sure you are one with God?" I would ask him, "Are you sure you are a man and not a dog?" He would say that he is a man because he cannot think of himself as anything but a man. In the same way, I am equally sure that I am one with God. Even if the whole world tells me otherwise, I do not feel anything about it. Spiritual certainty is something which nothing affects. The reporter asked, is it impossible to understand spiritual matters intellectually? Spiritual doctrines can be stated in intellectual terms. Intellect is a great help in the experience of the heart. If someone who never had a headache asks you to explain it to him, you will try to explain intellectually what it is. But to make him understand it, you would have to hit him over the head. He gets a headache and knows what it is. There is nothing irrational in spirituality. Explanation can be made so practical that it can be lived. Explanation can be made so practical that it can be lived. Jesus Christ said, "Leave all and follow me." It means leave your limitations and live my life. He meant that it was the practical way. Mysticism is thought to be something supernatural and out of human grasp. It is not so. You may be doing all your worldly duties and at the same time be a mystic. It depends on how you arrange your actions and whether you lead a proper life. Mahatma Gandhi, for example. Gandhi is a mystic in a way. Everyone is a mystic in his own way. A real mystic's life is practical. For everybody, it means leading life properly. Mysticism has connection with every phase of life, if properly expressed. If not, there is a reaction which cannot be called mysticism. Thus, love that is handled badly through jealousy is converted into hatred. Mysticism, if adjusted rightly, can help all nations now at war, while if handled otherwise, it would make matters worse. Mysticism means experience of the soul on a higher planes, and the highest is attained through this experience. The reporter thought over this for a few moments and then said, "But what is needed to bring peace is material adjustment among nations, economic and political changes. Has this doctrine any relevance to that?" Material adjustment can be made with spiritual understanding. If people were to be made to realize that all the trouble is due to self-interest, then automatically material adjustment would follow. Is economic adjustment possible so long as human beings are what they are? The reporter asked. Economic adjustment and human nature are codependent. If it is realized that the trouble is due to self-interest, the problem would be solved. It is easy and simple. Yet because of this ease and simplicity, the task is also difficult. For example, if praise and insult do not affect you, you would be always happy. If not, you are bound to be unhappy. How easy the remedy is, yet the simplicity itself makes it difficult. After the interview, Baba left and went to bathe the musts and gave them shaves and haircuts. Doctors Duncan and Neelu could not directly treat the women Mandalay staying in the ashram in Bangalore, since all the men were forbidden from seeing the Eastern women. Rano Gale would report to them about the health of each resident, and they had to prescribe medication without ever examining the patient. Once Naja fell ill, but at that time she did not speak English. When Rano asked her symptoms, Naja replied, "Something in stomach, something in shoulder, something in back." Rano went to Neela with the report and asked for medicine for Naja's something. When Baba came to know of the case, he had a good laugh. When Daula fell ill, the residents formed a language change, for Daula was fluent only in the Persian dialect called Dari. Therefore, Daula would explain her indisposition to Sunamasi in Dari. Sunamasi would retell it to Mansari in Gujarati. Mansari would recount it to Dr. Neelu in Marathi, and Neelu would explain it to Dr. Duncan in English. This also was very humorous. Mansari had been told to serve as a nurse and report on the Eastern women's health to Rano, who would then report to Neelu. But when Baba was among the women, instead of attending to her work, Mansari would decide to be present with him. This gave rise to discord between her and Rano. Explaining about of the circle of the masters on February 13th, Meher Baba stated, "There is a difference in the avatars or Sadguru's attitude toward their circles and toward the general public. The members of the circle are like the sons of the master, and the general public are like non-family members. For example, if a newsboy turns into a millionaire, he would teach others the ways by which he became so, and tell them that if they followed him, they too would become millionaires. But to his sons, he will give the riches, not descriptions of how he acquired the riches. In the same way, the avatar and the Sadgurus never explain to the members of their circles the ways and means of the path. They just place them right on the path to God realization itself, while to ordinary people they explain the ways and means to achieve it. The circle members do not need these explanations because they are the inheritors of the divine wealth, the heirs. When the wealth itself is in hand, what is the necessity for explaining the ways to obtain it? There are special rules for my circle members. Universal law for the masses that the punishment for murder is death by execution, but there is a special rule for my circle members. They are always saved from execution." Continuing his comments about spiritual masters, Baba stated, "There should be no misunderstanding about the avatar or the Sadgurus. They are like fire. If you touch fire, you will be burned. If you seek to use it from a distance, it will give you warmth, cook your food, warm your water, and be useful to you in every way. I repeat, the avatar and Sadgurus are like fire. Those outside the circle should be wary of them. They should not be misled by their talks and outward behavior. Sai Baba was a Sadguru, but occasionally his behavior was strange. Once, on seeing a naked child, he inquired, 'Is it a boy or a girl?' He also used to ask for money from those who came to him. Seeing such behavior on the part of Sadgurus, people doubt them, misunderstand them, and take them for ordinary beings. This is the downfall of those who so misunderstood. If I give a loose rein to someone and permit him to do whatever he likes, however improper or impractical it may appear from a worldly viewpoint, I do it with an object in view, with a far-sightedness that is beyond the grasp of the mind. It may be that I wish that the person concerned should do it only as a pastime, or to avoid a particular situation. So by leaving the rein loose to divert his mind to other things, I am just giving him a plaything, because I know that in the end he will get tired of it and throw it away. If the avatar or a Sadguru wishes his disciples to renounce something, he resorts to one of two methods. One way is that he snatches the thing away from him or has it stolen. Another is that he gives it such an importance that the person himself becomes fed up and gives it up. I have activated Maya's machine for a definite purpose. I permit humanity to have 1,001 experiences by passing through various acts. The masses will come out of it all in the end. When they are capable of perceiving it, they will find that all this was a part of a great play which God, in his unbounded cleverness, had staged with the objective of extricating humanity from Maya through Maya. The generally accepted idea of renunciation or detachment is an illusory way of getting away from Maya, because you miss the main point by running away. The inner reaction to such renunciation is that the mind soon goes out of control, leaving the person concerned in a morass, which only creates more complications. To overcome these new complications is still more difficult. The real remedy lies in remaining in Maya, but not being of it. The Mysore Engineering Company had been hired to construct the proposed Universal Spiritual Center at Mangala. Naroji Dadachanji was present to see that everything went according to Baba's instructions. The contractors, however, tried to use inferior materials, which Naroji would not allow. There was a big argument between Narojo and the contractors over the building in the middle of February. When Baba was told about the fight, he jested, "Make it, break it, but don't shake it. But I'm sure that's the only thing you'll do." On February 16th, a long meeting was held with the contractors in the morning. Finally, it was decided to terminate the contract and let the work be completed by the Mandalay. Baba approved of this. Meher Baba's 46th birthday was celebrated at the Links on Sunday, February 18, 1940. He informed the men Mandalay, "It was not the contractor's fault that the contract was broken. It was because of my own spiritual reasons." Baba began fasting on a cup of milk taken only once a day starting from February 18th. He also announced that he would be going into seclusion on Friday for a week until the 1st of March. Regarding his seclusion, Baba issued these instructions. Number 1. Baba will get up at any time convenient to him. He is not to be disturbed by anyone until he rises. Number 2. Baba will not speak to any of the women Mandalay. None from the women's group should come to the mast ashram, except Sunamasi and Valu, who can come up to the fixed limit, which will be shown to them. Number 3. Any member of the women's group wishing to communicate a message to Baba will write it out and send it to Jal Kerwala through Sunamasi. Jal will deliver the message to Baba in due course. Number 4. As usual, Mera should prepare milkless tea for Baba and send it with Valu. When the tea is required, a note will be sent to Sunamasi, who will inform Mera. The tea should immediately be prepared and sent with Valu without delay. Number 5. Baba will not take a bath, but he will wash his face and clean his mouth as usual. Erich will be responsible for keeping hot water ready for this purpose. Baba's special buckets should be used for the water. Number 6. Baba will take honey, water, and lemon juice. These will be kept in the hut. Number 7. Important letters from Norina, Kitty, Rano, Elizabeth, Margaret, and Mansari should be marked important on the outside and given to Rano to be sent to Baba through Sunamasi without delay. Number 8. The following members of the Mandali will quietly attend to the work of the Mast Ashram. Dr. Nilu from 10:30 to 11 a.m. Chanji from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. He would eat in the Mast Ashram and stay with Baba at night from 12 to 12:30. Adi Senior from 11 to 11:30 a.m. Vishnu from 11:30 to 12 noon. Brother Jal for a few minutes at 11:30. Padri, Naroji, and Pendu, when in Bangalore, should come at 12:30 p.m. Kahak Sahib from 2 to 6 p.m. Babu, Sona, Kambal, and companions from 6 p.m. onward. Number 9. As soon as mail, telegrams, and papers are received, Sunamasi should give them to Jal Karwala in the Mast Ashram, and Jal should carry them and give to Baba. Number 10. Baba will not bathe the musts. The work will be done by the members of the Mandalay who have been personally instructed by Baba about this. Baidul, Kaka, Erich, Sidhu, and Krishna were on the duty in the Mast Ashram along with Papa Jasawala. Vishnu's and Jangal's duty would be to do the marketing for the ashram. Adi Senior, Gani, Elizabeth, and Norina were supervising the editing, printing, and distributing of the Meher Baba journal, and Chugan was keeping watch at night near Baba. On Friday, February 23rd, Baba began fasting on water, honey, and lemon juice, staying in a hut in back of the Links, and working in seclusion with the musts. When Baba was in seclusion, doing his internal work for half an hour each day, he issued strict orders that everyone was to be absolutely silent during this period. Consequently, all activities in the compound and bungalow came to a stop during this time, lest the slightest noise disturb Baba in his work. Baba's hut was near the women's residence. When he began his work each day, they would sit quietly on their mattresses, which were rolled out on the floor. 5 days later, on February 28, Baba remained fasting but on only water. The next day he came at 4:30 p.m. to see the women for a few minutes. He remarked to them, "From tomorrow I continue fasting, but on orange juice and lettuce once a day for 11 days. By the 11th day, something sensational will happen. We leave on April 1st for Mehrabad and will tour for a month along the way." Baba broke his water fast at midnight on February 29th. The next morning, March 1st, Baba called the women to the MAST ashram at 8 a.m. Each was told to wash her hands and carry an article from Baba's room. Mera showed her anxiety at Baba's working so tirelessly with the must while fasting. Baba replied, "Fasting and bathing musts do not tire me, but I have been working internally very hard and have settled everything." Baba was working with the 20-odd musts who had been brought from Mehrabad, as well as Chatti Baba and Phulwala, who had been brought to the links during the Bangalore stay. Besides these, other musts were daily being brought, and Baba was working with each one. Baba never explained why he always wished to be alone when he was working with the musts. But once when Baba was sitting alone with Chatti Baba, and after both had been closeted in Baba's room for about 2 hours, just then Chatti Baba brushed past him on the way out. Erich felt a great shock, like an electrical current passed through his body. Chinna Swami was an interesting, subtle, conscious must staying in the Bangalore must ashram. When he smoked, he had the strange habit of often extinguishing his cigarette by putting the burning end in his mouth and chewing on it. Behind one of the must huts was an electric pole which was not grounded properly. Everyone would avoid touching it, as it gave an unpleasant shock. But Chinna Swami would actually wrap his hands around the pole and hug it for hours, as if he were enjoying the sensation. To give another idea of how unconscious musts were of their bodies, Phulwala, the six-plane must, used to suck a lump of lime with hydrogen peroxide, a substance so caustic an ordinary man would not have been able to touch his tongue to it. A tea stall had been opened in one corner of the must ashram on February 19th, where the must could go at any time and drink tea and smoke beedis or cigarettes. A crude hand-painted sign was nailed up reading, "Must Hotel." The musts apparently were delighted to have a place all their own to congregate. A singer had also been sent for them from Ahmednagar, and each day Baba would gather the musts in his room to listen to music. Tears of ecstasy would flow from Chatti Baba's eyes as he sat listening to the music. Our age marveled at the wonderful sight. The song of wine could be heard echoing from these advanced souls on the inner planes. The cadence of this song is quite distinct and beyond human understanding. The must lives were burning into pure, unadulterated wine in Bangalore, as the beloved song was sung from every pore of their beings. On March 6th, Dr. Jamsed D. Patel of Bangalore and Mr. N. Pestanji came to see Meher Baba. The following is a part of their conversation. Baba spelled from the alphabet board, "Although I am in seclusion and keep silence throughout, I am now very busy working internally for future developments. You will see the upheavals that will take place very soon. The war will take a very serious turn, bringing untold misery and ruination all around." Pestanji interjected, "Mr. Sumner Welles, the U.S. Undersecretary of State, is trying to negotiate for peace. Let us hope that he will be successful." Smiling, Baba made a play on words. "It is like digging a well in summer," meaning something unthinkable. "Nothing will come out of it. The world will soon plunge into the throes of a war never before seen or heard of." "But Baba, what about the thousands of lives that will be lost? Can't they be saved?" asked Pastanji. Baba dictated in reply, "The war is necessary. All this destruction will purge the world of dearth, cleanse it of filth, so that a new order can be established. There are millions and millions of holes in my body because of the suffering of the world, but because of my infinite bliss and power, I can withstand it. Suppose you have a boil on your finger which is septic. You do not cut off the whole finger because of it. You bear it because the finger is... But I do not destroy myself and slaughter all. I put up with it and suffer because all are a part of my universal body." During this period, Dr. Patel and Mr. Pastanji became close friends of the Mandalay in Bangalore and would regularly visit them even after Baba's departure. Meanwhile, Ghani Musif had recently come back from Poona. For the past 10 days he had been awaiting the outcome of a court case. That same evening on March 6th, Ghani gave a tea party to everyone in the MAST ashram. He had been falsely accused of murder and was celebrating because he was now assured of acquittal and that his property would be returned to him. Observing Ghani, Baba explained to the Mandalay, "This is a unique occasion. Dr. Ghani, all through the 22 years he has been in my contact, used to tell me, prior to my spiritual benefit, do something that will benefit me materially. And I did something that made his material life worse and worse by and by, though I told him that his worries would be lessened to some extent. Soon after, he was on the point of being prosecuted for murder, and his brother Abdur Rahman became very nervous. Ghani acted like one stranded between the third and fourth planes. It was so funny, beyond words. He was constantly in a dazed state of mind. I questioned him, and his answers were vague. I told him to leave everything to me, to do as I say. Don't write, I told him. No sooner he goes out than he writes wonderful letters to friends saying he is doomed and would have to meet a very unhappy fate. Later on, Ghani lost all hopes of his material worries getting lessened. But this murder proved a blessing in disguise. The properties he would have lost he received back miraculously. So, for the first time, Ghani feels some of his worries lessened. That is why he gives us this party tonight." Baba later announced that he was sending Papa Jasawala north to Mandala to build a small structure there for his use. Pendu was to go with him to help. Naroji Dadachanji, along with Padre, was busy in supervising the construction work going on in Baira Mangala. Naroji had a bad toothache. When Baba was informed, he sent Donkan and Nilu to Baira Mangala on March 7. Donkan, with much difficulty, extracted 2 of Naroji's teeth, but afterwards the pain got worse and Naroji was forced to lie down on his bed. Baba came to Baira Mangala later that same day. After seeing Naroji's condition, Baba became furious and scolded Donkan and Nilu. "Who told you to pull out his teeth? Are you doctors or barbers? Have you come to shave all? You are worthless, good-for-nothings. I'm convinced that you had to bribe someone for your degrees." For 15 minutes, Baba went on berating them. Meanwhile, Naroji got up from bed and said, "Baba, I have no pain now. Don't rebuke them on my account." Baba calmed down and explained to Nilu and Donkan, who were feeling very bad, "Don't worry, I had some purpose in scolding you." On March 8th, Pilamai Hormuzun and her daughter Sila arrived from Karachi to join the ashram in Bangalore. Baba broke his fast on Tuesday the 12th of March and declared, "Between the 11th and 20th of March, something very sensational will happen that will affect the world and the war, and especially Britain." He therefore informed all that it would be necessary for him to again fast until March 20th. The postponement of opening an ashram in Mandala disappointed many persons there. Their letters requesting Baba to reconsider came frequently to Bangalore. It was therefore decided to build a small structure on the property in Mandala. For that purpose, Baba sent Pendu, Papa Jasawala, and Homi there. Baba instructed Pendu to build an exact replica of his tomb on Marabad Hill. Pendu and Papa were to look after the construction work for 2 months, and Homi was to cook for them. Baba remarked, "Mandla is my spiritual home of ages ago. I am having this small structure built because of my link with it from the past." On March 10th, Baba wrote to Minta Toledano, "Tick me off for tempering or balancing my eternal suffering with eternal bliss, while humanity has to suffer without the joy of infinite bliss and happiness," implying, was it fair? Darling Shalimar, I want you to be always outspoken and free with your beloved. I know your love, but imperfectly as yet, hence your lack of understanding. The avatar has to suffer eternally for the world, but added to this is the often unnecessary suffering caused by his dearest and chosen ones, just because they do not understand him or his ways. This gift of understanding is more precious than any other attribute of love, be it expressed in service or sacrifice. Love can be blind, selfish, greedy, ignorant, but love with understanding can be none of these things. It is the divine fruit of pure love, the rarest fruit or flower of the universe. It has been called the sweetest flower in all the world. Age cannot wither it. It grows more lovely as it casts off its outer garment, disclosing its unseen beauty within. What a wonderful opportunity to learn that this love with understanding is given to those whom the Beloved, himself the epitome of perfect understanding, calls to live near him. What a tragedy for those who refuse. If they had any understanding of what they had passed over, their suffering would indeed be unbearable. No physical suffering, no suffering of the present war could compare with it. If they had understanding, they would never have refused. How complicated is life! But love cannot force. To serve, please, and love me is a very different thing from what, let us say, Hitler asks of his followers. They obey. If not, they are shot or imprisoned. My followers obey me voluntarily, a far more difficult ideal. Learn eventually you will, but in a school where suffering may not be combined with the presence of eternal bliss and happiness, as it would if you had come to me as I asked. There is so much in you which I need for my work, such capacity to understand, had you the desire to learn and the grit, determination and courage to strive for the goal. Who better than you were able to realize my changing moods, my present need, my unspoken wish? But you grew tired and wanted change. Like a child, you wanted the fairy palace, the fine jewel, without the climb and the toil for its attainment. Now, darling Shalimar, don't be miserable because this time I have ticked you off. Write again soon, and tell me all your plans, and what you would do, or what you would like to do. You have chosen the longer of two paths toward the happiness you sincerely desire, but it is a path, and I will lead you along it to the end. So you have nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. Mine you always were mine. Mine you always were, and mine you will always remain, whether there or here. Savak Kotwal had quit his job in Bombay and was preparing to go off to the Himalayas. His wife, Nargis, wrote to Meher Baba in Bangalore. In February, Baba called Savak to him. When he arrived, Baba informed him, "If you find a better guru than me in the Himalayas, you may go. Otherwise, come and stay with me." Savak was only waiting to hear these very words. He had wanted to stay with Baba for a long time, and his treat of going off to the mountains was only to force, I say again, his threat of going off to the mountains was only to force Baba to allow him to come. He returned to Bombay, and on March 16th with his wife Nargis, aunt Banabai Lakdawala, 2 daughters Naju and Hilla, and son Adi, came to Bangalore to permanently join Baba's ashram. Before coming to Baba, the Kotwals sold all their possessions. Nargis was from a very wealthy family, and all her relatives were shocked when they discovered what she was doing. When the Kotwals arrived in Bangalore, Savak handed Baba an envelope containing the family's entire finances. He also gave Baba a box containing all of Nargis's jewelry. Baba was pleased and remarked to Savak, "From today until the very end, I shall see to every one of your families I shall give the ocean." I say again, "From today until the very end, I shall see to every one of your family's littlest needs, and to you I shall give the ocean." Soon after, Nargis Kotwal fell ill, and Nadine Tolstoy was assigned the duty of nursing her. When she recovered, Baba asked her, "What do you think now? Savak has left his job. He is unemployed. You have sold all your property and now have no money. Aren't you worried?" "I belong to you, Baba," she said. "Be gracious enough to accept myself and my children in your service." Baba smiled, spelling out, "From today your responsibility is mine. I will look after you all till the end." Some days later, Baba sent the Kotwal family to Panchgani. When Baba returned to Mehrabad, they joined him there. Hilla and Naju would sometimes be called upon to sing for Baba, and the little boy Adi often made Baba laugh with his jokes and funny songs. Baba had been fasting on liquid since the 1st of March. During the second week he had fasted on only tea without milk, and in the third week on only water. On the final day of his fast, Thursday, March 20th, all the Mandalay, both men and women, fasted with him. He broke his fast the next day on the Irani New Year, Jamshed Naraz. On this holiday, Naraji Dadachanji and his daughter Nargis arrived in Bangalore from Bombay. On March 24th, when asked as to how the advanced God-mad must had come to the state they are in, and what that state actually is, Baba explained and answered questions. These men may be called yoga brashtas, apart from the circle, who are taken to the goal blindfolded. There are very few who receive the grace of a master and who are pushed to even the sixth plane. All this depends mostly on past sanskaras. It is very little of this present life which brings one in contact with the perfect master. These souls you see here had been on the path in their past lives, but were entirely lost as yoga brashtas and became spiritually dazed. Among many examples, one man held onto the fruit of a tree for 4 years, remaining in the same position until a master came and gave him experience, so that he released his hold on the fruit and branch he had been holding. One of the Mandalay asked how these men could withstand all the tests physically. Baba stated, "All of you have 3 bodies, gross, subtle, and mental. Ordinarily, everyone uses the first 2, gross and subtle, for experiencing the gross and subtle worlds, the former in the awake state and the latter in the dream state. After a soul is spiritually advanced and is stationed on the spiritual planes, he assumes a body which is called Karana Shari, mental body. When in this state, the soul has immense powers in proportion to the stage of advancement which he has attained. The power itself sustains the physical body even in the hardest strains and trials. That is how, even oblivious to the world and their own physical needs, they keep living as fresh and strong as ever. Otherwise, an ordinary man would drop the body even under 1,000th part of the strain on the physical body they experience. Material happiness is a millionth shadow of the true divine bliss," Baba concluded. Someone then asked how Baba was able to take so much of the strain and suffering of the work of bathing and feeding the masts, fasting, etc. upon himself. Baba replied, "It is not strain nor suffering. It is a pleasure in the performance of a mission and its fulfillment. Besides, those who come down to the world for duty after God realization bring with them the infinite powers which sustain the physical body. Their mind is a universal mind, and the body, Mahakaran, a universal body. With the help of the universal mind and body, the perfect ones can approach and contact anyone at any time, anywhere. Time and space do not exist for them." End of the chapter on Bangalore. Lord Meher, Volume 7. Lord Meher, 1940 and on, Chapter 7, that is Volume 7. This is the leaving Bangalore for Goa. That it was a necessary I say again, Meher Baba had previously indicated that it was necessary for him to go on a tour for his work, and a 1-month journey was subsequently chalked out. The journey of over 1,000 miles was to be made in the blue bus and in cars. Baba indicated that the places he wanted to visit. Before leaving, Baba gave duties to each of the mandali in Bangalore. Naroji, Padri, Masaji, and Murli remained in Bhaira Mangala, seeking to the work there. That is, seeing to the work there. Adi Senior and Dr. Ghani were to manage the Meher Baba journal, which they had already been doing with Norina and Elizabeth. Erich and Baidul were appointed to look after the masts. Shagan to cook, and Gustaji, Vishnu, Kali Mama, Sidhu, and Jungle to do other work in the ashram. Pendu and Papa Jesawala were in Mandla. Jal Rusi left for Quetta. Jal Rusi left for Quetta by Baba's order. After staying in Bangalore for 8 months, Baba left on Monday morning, April 1st at 7 a.m. with the women mandali, Kaka, Duncan, Nilu, and Brother Jal, 40 in all, in 3 cars and the blue bus. They reached the Dak bungalow at Sakori at noon. As soon as they left Bangalore, the pet zoo was shifted from the links to the men's mandali quarters. Throughout the journey, Baba traveled in Elizabeth's Buick with the Invisibles, as the close women mandali were known to the men mandali. Brother Jal drove the Austin with some of the Western women. Tukaram drove the Opal with Gaimai Jasawala and her daughters and son Meherwan, and Duncan drove the blue bus with Kaka, Nilu, and 16 women. The 3 men were traveling in the front seat of the blue bus and had been ordered by Baba not to look at the women in the back. Whenever the bus would pull over to the side or stop along the way, the 3 men would exit from the bus first and then walk straight ahead without looking back until they were out of sight. Then the women mandali would get down. They arrived in Shimoga the following morning, where they were received by Saya B.S. Amir Ahmed and Saya B.S. Mahmud. These 2 brothers had met Baba in Bangalore and invited him to Shimoga. So Baba had included the stop on his itinerary. Baba was taken to see the site of the gold mine they owned, and he indicated to them where to begin digging. I say again, Baba was taken to see the site of the gold mine they had owned, and he indicated to them where to begin digging. End of side 1 of this tape. Please turn to side 2. Brothers and Avatar of the Age, Meher Baba, Lord Meher, Volume 7, 1940, Goa. The brothers had made arrangements for Baba's group. The townspeople of Shimoga came for his darshan. Baba did not really wish to meet anyone during the tour, but he granted the prayer. Darshan was given to the local people. Baba was photographed with the brothers and with a local group. Baba continued to sit for half an hour in seclusion each day while on tour, and the women were again ordered to maintain absolute silence during this period. Invariably, however, there would always be some noise. Baba finally instructed that they were to sit on their mattresses without moving for 30 minutes. During this time in Shimoga, Sunamasi's alarm clock stopped working, and Gulamasi was sitting on her bed trying to repair it. Suddenly, in the midst of that still, silent atmosphere, the alarm began ringing. Knowing this would displease Baba, the women became so frightened their hearts were thumping. They quickly buried the ringing clock under a heap of pillows, but its loud tick, 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 tick could still be heard. After his work in seclusion was over, Baba reprimanded these women. In the afternoon of April 3rd, Baba decided to go to see Kasopa Falls, 63 miles away. Before leaving, he directed Donkin and the other drivers to follow his car. On the way, they encountered a section of the road that was decorated with arches raised over it. There was one beautiful arched gate through which cars passed, but with the throng of people there and all the luggage piled on top of the bus, it would have been difficult to drive it through the crowd and under the arches. Kaka told Donkin to take the bus around the town via a circuitous route, and Donkin did so. They had not gotten far, however, when the bus got stuck in a deep hole. With much difficulty and with the help of a hired bullocks from the village, the bus was finally dragged out. Baba was waiting for them some distance ahead and got upset with both Kaka and Donkin for not following his instructions. Baba, however, confirmed, "It happened because my original plan was altered." Thus, they had a lesson of what happens if one fails to heed Baba's order. To make matters worse, along the way the bus had 2 tire punctures also. Soon after the caravan got underway again, it was stopped by a burning tree that was blocking the road. The men had to get out and move it to the side. Baba said, again, I repeat, Baba and the group arrived at Gursopa at 11 in the night. It was so late that they had trouble finding their rest house. They came to a bungalow, which they thought was the right one, and occupied it. But after unpacking, they found out that this bungalow belonged to someone else, and that where they were supposed to stay was still some distance. Baba appeared on the scene and informed the women to get ready to leave immediately. Hearing this, Adi Keirani's sister Dali angrily said, "You fool, don't you see that I am tired?" Baba had a good laugh at this. Dali was mentally unbalanced and would uninhibitedly say anything to anybody, including Baba. All left for the next bungalow. One of the headlights of the blue bus had gotten fused and it was difficult to drive at night. Nilo and Kaka had to sit on the mud guards on both sides of the bus, holding flashlights to guide the way. At midnight they reached the house that had been rented, which overlooked Jog Falls. Early in the morning, April 4th, at 7 o'clock, they left Gursopa and ferried the cars and bus across a river. They reached Kawar over 12 hours later, at 7:30 in the evening, and stayed at the Grand Hotel, which overlooked the sea and hills. The men stayed in a rest house nearby. On the beach, Baba built sand castles while the women swam. Vishnu's 2 cousins, Indu and Shushila, arrived in Kawar to help with the cooking. Indu's husband, Vishwanath Halnakar, helped Chanji arrange accommodation for Baba and the Mandali at Ambali and Belgaum. Every evening Baba would listen to Indu and Sushila sing, and he praised them highly. This was their first opportunity to have the Master's close contact. The Master's nazar was upon Indu since she was a young girl. 8 years before 1932, when Baba was planning to journey, he had wanted to take a young woman with him, and Indu had been chosen, but she was unable to go because she had fallen ill. The establishment of ashrams at different places in India was the chief topic of conversation along the journey. On April 6th, Baba took all in a boat to an old Christian church named Nossa Senhora dos Bratos on a small mile-long Portuguese island called Angidiv, 8 kilometers off the Kawar coast. The splendor of the place was magnetic, and Baba made a revealing remark. Of the 3 centers I want to build for my work in the world, I have to build one here. In Kawar, Baba gave this explanation to the women about spiritual poise. What is spirituality? It is the undoing of what you have been doing since ages. You always thought of selfish motives for eating, preserving your life, and attending to every need with zeal. All these lives you have made a habit of looking to yourself. If the slightest thing goes against your habit, you are upset. Now, to undo all these selfish bindings, you have to do what you have not been doing. or not to do what you have been doing. What you have been doing always is thinking of yourself. So now you must not think of yourself, but think of others. This is what is called love. But it needs character, poise, perseverance. Poise, what is it? That state of mind where nothing excites you, nothing upsets you. Only if you have poise can you help others. Then only can you make others happy. That means love, thinking not of yourself, but of others. If you are in the Sahara, and for 4 days you have no water to drink, and all of a sudden 1 bottle of water appears, how do you react? If you have poise, you will let your companion drink, and not mind dying and letting her live. But if you fight and grab for it, you lack poise and spirituality. It is this poise that makes you sacrifice and makes others happy. For example, I always say, make the best of everything. Here you have food, swimming, boating. Make the most of them and feel happy. Do not say it is not spiritual to enjoy innocent pleasures. But when we are driving on tour, and there is dust and we feel hunger, thirst, and feel sick, then feel as happy as you do now. This is poise. If you do not feel happy now, it is not easy to feel happy while traveling. Do not feel you are not spiritual in enjoying swimming, boating, etc. Is this clear? I do not mean making a show of being happy, but to really feel happy. For my circle, it is all right. You live with me. Leave all for me, so you are serving the universe. But for those who are not living near me, this poise is 100% essential for spirituality. Again, what is spirituality? Poise, perfect poise. Make the most of every situation. He who upsets no one is a good man. He who is upset by no one is a God-man. They left Kawar on the early morning of April 9th at 4:45 a.m. It took nearly 5 hours for all 4 vehicles to cross the river. It was very hot, and Brother Jawl's Austin car started to malfunction and finally broke down. Eventually, it had to be left in the jungle for the night. Jal and his passengers crowded into the bus and the Opal and drove to Supa, where Baba was waiting for them. At about 8:30 at night, soon after they arrived, Baba took the men to a river where he poured water from a kettle for each in turn while they washed their face and hands. Donkin thought, rather like Christ washing his disciples' feet. Baba then served them food. Elizabeth had a flat. This is why I gave you the talk on poise the other day. You must not grumble if I make you undergo a tiny bit of the suffering which I am now going through. The previous night, Baba had been groaning painfully, and he added, I am now suffering tremendously internally. The next day, the Austin Jal was driving was towed to a nearby village. Neela went to Belgaum to tell Vishwanath to have the car taken there for repair. They arrived in Panjim on the late morning of April 11, traveling via Anmod, where they stayed in the Hotel Republica. On their way to the hotel in Panjim, after passing through customs, they passed the old Catholic church of St. Francis Xavier, and Baba directed Elizabeth to inquire when the church would be open to view. Elizabeth stopped the car and went into a small restaurant next to the church to inquire. Shortly thereafter, she came out with an elderly man dressed in an old suit and a solar topi. He looked about 60, with a long gray beard and long hair, but bald on top. He told her in English the church was open at all times. Baba looked at the man and then departed. That evening, all went with Baba to see Francis Xavier's tomb. Just as they were about to return, the same old man walked up to Elizabeth and started a conversation. He told her he had come from Karachi, where he wrote plays, but to that date they were unpublished and had come to Goa to write. He also mentioned modern dramas and even the playwright Bernard Shaw. Brother Jal, Kaka, Donkin, and Baba stood around him as the man talked. Baba directed Jal to ask if he needed anything, specifically money, and the man replied, "No thanks," and glanced seriously at Baba. Later that evening, back at the hotel, Baba revealed to the group about the man, "You are all blind. He is very spiritually advanced and a conscious agent. All his talk about writing plays had hidden meaning meant for me. I gave him certain instructions internally, and tomorrow he will leave Goa." The next day, suddenly Elizabeth encountered the man again. He told her in a cryptic manner, "I don't know why, but I feel all on fire. Although I intended to stay in Goa for some months, I have to leave at once for a cold country in the north." Elizabeth related the strange meeting to Baba, who remarked, as Elizabeth had been the first to meet him, she must also be the last. Later that day, they heard on the radio that, without prior warning, Germany had invaded Denmark and Norway, both cold countries in the north, on the 9th. In Panjam, Elizabeth asked Baba one day, "Very good quality ice cream is available here. May I bring some for all?" Baba replied, "That is an excellent idea, but it should not cause colds and affect your throats." Baba sent for Nilo and asked, "What remedy is there to prevent getting sore throats from eating ice cream?" Nilu replied, "Garlic chutney would be a good prophylactic against any side effects from ice cream." Baba permitted Elizabeth to bring ice cream, and she was very happy. She was unaware of Nilu's suggestion, as Baba had conversed with him in Marathi. When Elizabeth left, Baba informed Katie and Manu to prepare a large amount of garlic chutney. Elizabeth returned with cartons of delicious ice cream, and Baba served it to all. However, they had to eat it along with the chutney. He told them to eat as much ice cream as they liked, but to follow each spoonful with a bit of hot chutney. All the joy was taken out of the affair, and they thought to themselves, "It would have been better had we not had ice cream." Norina, Elizabeth, and Duncan went to see the Portuguese governor on April 13th about the island in Kawar. After a lengthy discussion with him, it was learned that the place was not available for establishing a center for Baba. In Goa, Baba took the women to a Hindu temple and to a movie called Gopal Krishna. He also contacted a mast in Goa and gave him a bath. During their stay, Baba permitted them to eat fish, and he also joined in, indicating it was for special reasons. Soon planning to leave and proceed on his tour, a 15-year-old orphan named Santana Fernandez was found, and they took him with them. Baba liked Santana and indicated he had a spiritual nature, as well as being bright and intelligent. The most significant must contact in Goa was with a Christian woman of whom Baba emphasized, held the key to the spiritual affairs of Goa. Kakabaria and Norina were instructed to go out and find her and bring her back to Baba's hotel for contact. The Mastani was found walking along a road. She very impressive, being very big and strong-looking. Being a Christian, she did not wear a sari, but a black blouse and a big pleated skirt. When Norina saw her, she struck Norina as if she was a mythological Amazon. So masculine and dominating was her physical demeanor. Norina tried to persuade to come with her, but she gestured Norina to stay away from her and continued walking down the road. Norina again tried to persuade her to come in the car, but she refused. They followed her while she walked directly to the hotel, where Baba was standing on the balcony of his room, as if he were awaiting her arrival. When she came to the front of the hotel, she stopped, looked up at Baba for a few moments, and then strode away. This unnamed saintly woman was also called Mastani Mai by Baba. Baba's group left Goa on the morning of April 15th at 6 o'clock and spent the night in a Kanapur dak bungalow. They started for Amboli at 9 the next morning. On the drive there, Baba spotted a must sitting under a tree. Baba took the must in the car with him, and they arrived at Amboli at 1 in the afternoon. Vishwanath Haldankar had made all the suitable preparations at the dak bungalow in which they stayed. The Maharani of Savantwadi, whose husband had given the Panchgani Tiger Valley cave to Baba, expressed her wish for Baba's darshan, and Baba acceded to her request. The Maharani came to see Baba with her 3 daughters on April 17th. Baba met with her for a few minutes. She humbly placed a coconut at his feet. Baba picked it up and handed it to one of her daughters, remarking, "Keep this with you always. Preserve it. Everything will be all right. You should not worry." The Maharani was deeply moved, as her daughter had been suffering terrible mental anguish, although she had not mentioned this to Baba. His unexpected prasad deeply gladdened the Maharani's heart. The Maharani invited Baba with the women to visit her palatial bungalow. Baba accepted, and they visited there 2 days later. One day, on the veranda of their bungalow in Amboli, Arnavas, Silla, Manu, Meru, and others were playing cards, when Baba unexpectedly showed up. He was displeased, I say again, he was displeased and castigated them. If people see you, they will say that Meher Baba's followers do nothing but play cards all day. We are in a new town, and just think for a moment what ill effect your card playing would have on a casual observer. Don't you donkey heads feel ashamed? Although I have no objection to it, I have to see to the minutest of things so that bad consequences do not follow. So the women stopped playing the card game and began eating their lunch on the veranda. Again Baba came and reproved them for not going inside. He ended by remarking, "Margaret will dance on her return to England and Arnavas on her return to Bombay, but here in my ashram." From such small incidents, Baba was emphasizing to them the importance of obedience. By scolding them, he was breaking down their egos, and thereby lightening their load on the path, so that they could progress on it humbly without stumbling. Silla Hormuzud's birthday was celebrated on April 20th with fresh mango ice cream. Besides an abundance of mangoes, Amboli had plenty of poisonous snakes, whose bites were said to mean certain death. Baba ordered all not to move about in the dark without a lamp. Once Kitty and Nadine forgot their lanterns, and the next day Baba took them to task, asking, "Why did you break my order? Do you think I am a fool?" Nadine reasoned, "But had a snake bitten us, we would have died in your presence." "How would that have benefited you?" Baba asked. "We would have merged into your ocean. Instead of drowning, you would have been carried to the shore. Merging in the ocean is not for those who disobey. They are tossed up on the beach like an old piece of dry driftwood, and there they die. What gain is there in such a death? With me, one has to live while dying, so that you can live eternally after dying such a death. Do you follow?" Nadine nodded that she did. Baba took the women sightseeing in Amboli to Madev Fort, Temple Point, Parvati Point, Nut Peak, and other places of interest. Irene Billow and Elizabeth became ill there for days and were kept under treatment. On the same day, April 20th, at 2 in the afternoon, Baba left Amboli and traveled to Belgaum, where they arrived 3 hours later, and stayed in a bungalow belonging to the Maharani of Savantwadi, 3 miles from the city. Duncan drove Elizabeth's car, with Elizabeth and Baba in the front seat, as she was still not well. In Belgaum, too, Haldankar had made all of their arrangements, and Indu and Shushila continued to do the cooking. On April 22nd, Baba took the women to see the spot chosen for establishing Baba's center in Belgaum, and the Maharani of Santavadi again came to see them. The next morning, Baba left at 5 a.m. for Sakharpa, where he arrived at midnight. In Sakharpa, he received a letter from Belgaum informing him that another piece of property had been donated to him for use for his center. Norina, Elizabeth, and Duncan returned to Belgaum to inspect the land on the afternoon of April 24th, and then returned. During the whole tour, Norina remained occupied discussing with Baba the various plans for establishing a center. On the early morning of April 26th, Baba and the women left Sakharpa without taking tea and drove to Chiplin, were relative of Kali Mama, had arranged for their breakfast at his house. After taking refreshments, they left and arrived in Mahabaleshwar at 6 in the evening, where they checked into the Granville Hotel. Baba took them to Wilson Point, Bombay Point, and Arthur's Seat the next day. On Sunday morning, April 28th, they left for Panchgani. There they stayed in the Buena Vista Hotel. The women walked with Baba to his cave at Tiger Valley and sat inside the cave with him for a few minutes. Sava Kotwal and his family were staying in Panchgani by Baba's orders, and Baba instructed them to go to Mehrabad and await his arrival. Leaving Panchgani on the morning of April 29th, Baba arrived in Ahmednagar at 1 in the afternoon, where he rested with all at Akbar Press. The Satha and Damiana families again met Baba after a long absence and felt joyous to be once more in his presence. During that day, Chanji arrived from Bombay. After all the women had taken a bath and eaten lunch, Baba and the group left Ahmednagar and drove to Happy Valley, arriving at 6 that evening. The group was to remain in the Dak bungalow in Happy Valley for 4 days. End of chapter on Goa. Seclusion in Mehrabad. Buha Sib, who was living in Pune, was involved in a motorcycle accident on Wednesday, May 1st, 1940. A car shot out of a side street and struck him. He was thrown over his motorcycle and died instantaneously on the street from a brain concussion. He was 48 years old. Baba had come to Karushu quarters with Duncan that morning. They were running out with the news after receiving Adi Jr.'s phone call from Pune. On being told about Buha Sahib, Baba showed no emotion and reminded them of what he had stated before leaving Bangalore. Before the end of the war, 2 of my dearest disciples will die, a male and a female, or both males. Who will be the second? He asked rhetorically. Duncan, Sarosh, Chanji, and Baidul, who had recently returned from Bangalore, went by car to Pune to attend Buha Sahib's funeral that afternoon. Duncan was then sent to Bangalore to deliver the news and repeat Baba's message that there was still one more, man or woman, to die. According to Meher Baba's wish, the following circular was issued to his followers. In memory of the deep spiritual connection of Buha Sahib with Meher Baba, Baba and the Mandali will fast the whole day on Wednesday the 8th. They will take only tea in the morning and break the fast after sunset. Water may be taken. Meher Baba will feed 100 poor on that day with his own hands. Buha Sahib, Behiramji, had been in Baba's contact since before the Pune toddy shop in Kaspa Peth. He had been with Baba throughout the Manzali Meme and early Mehrabad years. Baba remarked to the Mandali, "As one of my nearest and dearest disciples, he unconsciously, when alive, was one with me, and now that he has left the body, he consciously enjoys that blessed union with me." With Buha Sahib's death, the practice of issuing circulars to Meher Baba's disciples and devotees in India and abroad began, and it continued up to the year 1949. Before 1940, Baba's orders and various messages were being conveyed to his lovers through correspondence or typed copies. But after Buha Sahib's death, they were conveyed through printed circulars. Baba and the group left Happy Valley for Mehrabad on May 3rd. They stopped in Ahmednagar first and saw the movie The Wizard of Oz at the Sarosh Cinema. Rustam Kaka, who was the projectionist there, had the chance to receive Baba's darshan after a long time. Sarosh had arranged a special matinee exclusively for Baba and the women so that they could see the movie in total privacy. Baba arrived in Mehrabad at noon. Mehrabad once again reflected its glorious atmosphere after 10 months of Baba's absence. By now, all the masts from Bangalore, the Pet Zoo, and the Mandali, namely Baidul, Erich, Gustaji, Hami, Jungle, Kali Mama, Papa Jasawala, Pendu, Sailor, and Vishnu, had come back to Mehrabad. The men Mandali had previously traveled from Bangalore by train with 25 mad and musts, a gazelle, a peacock, a lamb, a white rabbit, some geese, 5 dogs, 3 monkeys, and pet birds. All of them, not to mention the luggage, trunks, and some furniture, were all crammed into a special bogie car. Adi Senior, Gani, Naroji, Padri, Masaji, Murli, Chuggan, and Sidhu remained in Bangalore. Swamiji returned to Madras, where he died a year later. Donkin, Nilu, Chanji, Kakabaria, and Brother Jal had been with Baba since he left Bangalore. In accordance with the circular, on Wednesday, May 8th, Baba and the whole of both the men and women Mandali at Mehrabad and Bangalore fasted, and Baba fed the poor and distributed sweets. On May 9th, Baba observed, "I want to open 12 centers throughout India before I speak. Of these, 6 have already been established, at Mehrabad, Nasik, Toka, Madras, Mangala, and Mandla. For the remaining 6, different places around India are still to be selected. This was one of the objects of my last tour." As soon as Baba set foot in Mehrabad, he paid strict attention to and arranged everything in the ashram. He expressed his intention with events in the war. News on the war front in Europe was distressing. On May 10, 1940, vast forces of the German army swept into neutral Belgium, Luxembourg, Holland, and France, and within a month had captured all of those countries. The Master's darshan had not been available for a long time, as Baba had been in Bangalore and touring. When his return to Mehrabad became known, followers nearby began writing to ask permission to come for his darshan. Baba therefore gave darshan on May 15th for a day. From Bombay, Chanji brought over 40 lovers. After seeing everyone individually and having interviews with them, Baba sent them all back after a 6-hour stay. Dr. Deshmukh arrived from Nagpur on May 16th, and Baba allowed him to stay in Mehrabad for 15 days, after which Deshmukh went on a lecture tour, speaking about Baba at various places in India. Almost constantly throughout May, there were daily visits by the various Mandali members and close ones. Adi Senior came from Bangalore and was sent to Poona and Bombay. Ramju and Manek Ranji came from Nasik. Kali Mama was sent to Kolhapur and then back to Bangalore. Murli and Naroji came from Bairamangala for discussions. Chanji returned from Bombay. Sarosh and Rusi, Katie's and Goher's father, were daily visitors from Ahmednagar, and members of the Satha family were occasional visitors from there. Brother Jal and Adi Jr. came from Poona, the Haki from Rahuri, Kaikuba Dastur from Bombay. Others visited as well. Baba's schedule at this time was as follows. He got up at 5 a.m., had private meetings, and then gave instructions to the Mandali. In the morning he made the rounds of the MAST ashram, which was now situated on Mehrabad Hill, in the buildings that had formerly housed the maternity hospital and the offices of the Meher Baba Journal. Baba gave baths to the musts from 7 to 8:30 a.m. He then came down to meet with the Mandali at Lower Mehrabad and stayed in his japti until noon, meeting outsiders, giving instructions, and so forth. In the afternoon, he was preoccupied with frequent visits to the Mas ashram and in sitting in seclusion with various musts. He would also visit the women and relax and discuss various matters with them. Ever since K.J. Dastur left Baba in 1931, he would write Baba plaintive letters, even threatening suicide, asking for money. Just one more time. Much to the Mandali's consternation, Baba would usually send him some amount, and Dastur would promise to pay the money back as soon as he was able. But in April, despite Baba's repeated help to him out of his love, Dastur wrote to Baba that unless he was loaned money again, he would be forced to take legal action against Baba, filing a lawsuit and dragging Meher Baba's name into court for breach of promises made to him by Baba over the years. His latest threat was too much for the Mandali, and Ghani in Bangalore wrote a befitting reply with Baba's full approval. An excerpt is as follows. Who could have imagined that the author of the epitaph, His Divine Majesty, could stoop so low as to resort to blackmail? Your desperate story and plight of bankruptcy, indebtedness, and threat of suicide to escape, as well as your frantic appeals to the Master for monetary help, invariably accorded in spite of your calling him a cheat and charlatan, all these factors present to a sincere student of human nature very illuminating studies in man's transcendental heights and bottomless falls. It seems a case of perverse neurosis for specialists like Sigmund Freud and Havelock Ellis. Baba's magnanimous gesture of monetary help given to you frequently in answer to your frantic appeals, as evidenced by your numerous letters, you unfortunately look upon as hush money. But in this you have miserably failed to appraise Baba's true nobility and innate greatness. The whole world has scriptural knowledge of God. Hundreds die for him, and only a few attain him. The spiritual grace of divine personalities such as Meher Baba is to be begged for and induced by service and self-effacement. It surely cannot be attained by flattery or threats. You have no case or claim against Meher Baba, legal or technical. It is the chicken-hearted, unmindful of their own worthiness in the spiritual domain who deem the promises of saints as legal tender to be cashed on demand without fulfilling the sine qua non of the situation. But it was all part of Baba's perfect game. Even though Dastur had left him, by his writing to Baba for money, he was remembering Baba more. Such was Baba's work to keep him in his contact for the past 9 years. Sadguru Upasni Maharaj had repeatedly asked Meher Baba to take over the managing of his ashram in Sakori, and at this time he again sent a messenger with the same plea. On May 17, 1940, Baba called Adi Sr. from Bangalore and sent him to Maharaj at Sakori with the following message. First, stop all the Hindu rituals and ceremonies at Sakori. Second, the value of Upasni Nagar, his ashram, at Sakori, is less than 500,000 rupees. It will be paid to you by Meher Baba in installments. Third, Maharaj is to execute a gift deed, and when the full amount is handed over, he should deliver the deed to Meher Baba. Accordingly, Adi Sr. went to Sakori and gave Upasni Maharaj the message. Adi then returned and related Maharaj's reply to Baba. The next day, Baba again sent Adi to Sakori with this message. 50,000 rupees will be paid in cash to you on August 1st, 1940. And if the activities at Upasni Nagar are conducted satisfactorily to Meher Baba, the balance will be paid after 4 months. If Meher Baba fails to pay 450,000 rupees after 4 months, then Baba forfeits the 50,000 rupees already given to Maharaj. If affairs at Upasni Nagar are not to Meher Baba's satisfaction, Upasni Maharaj should return the 50,000 rupees. Baba has agreed to take over Upasni Nagar for 3 reasons. 1, to bring about unity in all religions by abolishing the Hindu rituals, ceremonies, and customs there. 2, to free Maharaja of the responsibility of conducting the ashram. 3, to remove the notoriety associated with Maharaja's name for his marriage with unwed girls, linked with and bringing Meher Baba unfavorably into the picture as Maharaja's disciple. Adi went to Sakori and delivered this message, and on his return conveyed Maharaja's reply to Baba. Baba sent Adi back to Bangalore, and then had this note sent to Gulmai, who was staying with Maharaj in Sakori during these proceedings. Meher Baba is happy to know that Maharaj has agreed to all his conditions, for example, to break up the Hindu religious customs and to put a stop to his marrying with young girls. Meher Baba is prepared to pay 500,000 rupees, but he has many running expenses at his different ashrams, and also the expenses of maintaining his devotees and their families. He cannot afford to pay so much in one lump sum just now. He will pay it within 6 months. Meher Baba will assume the responsibility of Upasni Nagar at the time when he pays the amount in full, and he says, thus the exchange of such peculiar messages and transactions between the two masters would occasionally transpire. It was their divine humor to engage in such play. During the Rahuri Mad ashram in 1936, Maharaj had sent message after message to Baba to take over his ashram in Sakori. Baba had replied that Maharaj should come and stay in the Rahuri Mad ashram and end the Hindu religious atmosphere at Sakori once and for all. There was definitely some inner purpose behind this exchange, but it is beyond our limited understanding. It might be surmised that inwardly Baba was taking upon himself the responsibility of Upasni Nagar after Maharaj dropped his body. On May 18th, one of Upasni Maharaj's chief disciples, Yeshwant Rao, arrived from Sakori to see Baba. That same day, the Haki, Gadikar, and Kahak Sahib also came to meet with him. On May 19th, Shivrao came from Bangalore to stay at Mehrabad, but Baba soon after sent him back with Kali Mama. Upasni Maharaj's 70th birthday was celebrated in 1940 at Mehrabad by Baba. Day and night, the Arangon villagers chanted God's name in Vithoba's temple in the village for a week prior to Maharaj's birthday. The actual day of the birthday was celebrated with much rejoicing on May 23rd. Baba had the Mandali arrange a feast for the neighboring villages. On May 20th, Baba had cryptically remarked, "I will die on May 27th." But Baba was feeling fine that day and explained, "Today, King Leopold of Belgium has surrendered to the German forces. He is a fool. Not only has he lost all his honor by giving in, but he has got nothing out of Germany for himself in exchange." The next 2 months will be critical for the Allies. Everyone will say the Allies will lose. In August, the tables will suddenly turn, and the Allies will get the advantage. But it will be a close shave. In August, I may go to Russia via Persia. On May 30th, Chadarwala and his family were sent to Bangalore, where they lived in a rented house. There, Erich helped Adi Sr. file and properly arrange all of Chanji's diaries and correspondence, which Chanji had kept disorganized in trunks. Homi Batana came to see Baba at Mehrabad on May 30th, and then returned to Bombay. Padre had arrived the day before and was sent back to Bairamangala on June 8th. Papa Jasawala was sent to Karwar to look for a suitable site for establishing an ashram for Baba. Baba entered seclusion in the Mast ashram on the hill at noon on Saturday, June 1st. From that day on, he was preoccupied solely with the musts. Although Baba would work with them daily, the work with the must intensified. The work done with the must during his seclusion was for the must to receive an inner push toward greater advancement. Erich had been the manager of the Mast ashram. Papa Jasawala was now put in charge, while Erich was in Bangalore with the rest of his family. The 5 boys who had been brought from Bangalore were also working in the Mast ashram, along with Gustaji and Savik Katwal. Daily Baba would work with the musts, Chatti Baba, Phulwala, Shariat Khan, Mohammed, Ramshish, who had been brought from Bangalore, and others. Baba would begin his work at 5 a.m. each day and continue it until late at night. He would spend his time bathing, reclothing, feeding and shaving the musts, and working with them individually in seclusion. During his seclusion, his schedule was usually rising at 5 a.m., tea at 7 a.m., lunch at noon, tea again at 4 p.m., and no dinner. Vishnu would come at 7:30 a.m. and again at 3 p.m. with the mail, at which times Baba would attend to correspondence. On Monday, June 3rd, Baba remarked, "This 2-month special seclusion is for my special universal work, particularly to speed things up regarding the war. After the stirring up during the seclusion period, usually startling changes will take place in the war situation. Nations in all will eventually be involved, including Italy and America. Situations will be so grave they will verge on breathlessness. All of a sudden, unexpected developments will take place which will be the turning points. Those who had the upper hand will be eventually subdued and thrown off, and others, who had been made to suffer in breathless suspense all these months, along with millions of others in the world, will breathe a sigh of relief. Later the same day, Baba gave the following message. During these 10 days of my seclusion, I shall decide definitely the length of time this war will last, and exactly when it will end. Before I speak, and before peace reigns, there must be a real world war in which India will be involved 100%, and places under Mohammedan rule, such as Iran, Afghanistan, Turkey, Egypt, and so forth, will also be entrapped in it, while Italy, Russia, and America will play very active parts. If this war prolongs in this above-mentioned manner, I shall speak in August 1941, in which case, for a year, from August 1940 to August 1941, I shall, with certain of my male and female disciples, go to stay on the boundary of Russia and India, or on some island across the ocean. If the war does not prolong, then I shall decide whether to go to the border or somewhere else. My speaking is largely connected with the world war and peace. Peace does not mean truce. A truce does not necessarily have to happen. A truce will not make me speak. Before the end of the war, when peace is just on the point of appearing, I shall speak. I shall speak just before permanent peace. For several weeks, Chatti Baba had been telling his attendant Krishna that the people of Europe were undergoing terrible suffering. Baba would bathe this great must every day with 150 to 200 buckets of water. The bath of bucket after bucket of water would take hours. Just after his bath, Chatti Baba had the odd habit of sitting on the ground and scooping up handful after handful of loose dirt and pouring it over his head. Baba even instructed Krishna to keep 15 baskets of earth in Chatti Baba's room every day to facilitate this need. It was while he was pouring earth over his head one day that Chatti Baba poignantly remarked to Krishna, "There will be much anguish and privation in the world, and many will die of starvation, but Baba will finally assuage the suffering of the world." Yet Chatti Baba grew more and more restless. On the night of June 5th at 1 o'clock, carrying a lantern, he suddenly rushed into Baba's room, bawling out, "Arise! Arise!" Sabe Kotwal and the others asked him what had happened, and he replied, "Nothing." The next morning he cleaned his room himself, which he had never done before. Again, on the afternoon of June 6th, the must entered Baba's room, stood by the door, and said, "If not Mysore, I am going back to my village." He said he wished to leave, so Baba ordered the Mandali to take him out of the compound for a walk. He was taken out, but wanted to walk to the women's side. The men tried to lead him away, but he was adamant. Finally, Baba sent a car, and Chatti Baba was told he would be taken to his village. Smilingly, he got in, and was driven instead back to his room. Chatti Baba appeared very restless until 8 that evening, and would frequently open and shut his door. On the morning of the 8th of June, he locked himself in his room and would not come out for his bath. But the most significant incident occurred on Sunday night, June 9th, when the must became suddenly violent, noisily leaving his small room and going directly to Baba's room. There he told Baba, "My house has been utterly destroyed. It is on fire. I have come to you for shelter." Baba at once ordered the Mandali to leave him alone with the must, and both retired into Baba's room and shut the door. The Mandali heard Chatti Baba talking feverishly to Baba for a few hours, and then all was quiet. He spent the night alone with Baba in his room. The next morning, June 10th, Baba left his seclusion and explained about the must behavior. He was overwrought with despair because of the cataclysm that is occurring in France these days. Baba went to see the women, and at one point he poignantly commented, "If Italy joins the war, there will be world war. There will be utter destruction and chaos, just as I want. Then people will feel the hollowness, the emptiness of it all, and turn to God. Since I am in India, India will suffer a great deal also." Later that day, to the surprise of the world, Italy declared war on England and France. The next day, June 11th, when Baba heard the news, he remarked to the women, "Now Turkey has to join, and then everything will go as I planned. So if Turkey joins, cook rava, a sweet dish, to celebrate. There has never been such a war, and never will be another like it. But when this is over, peace will reign for 400 years. From this mass destruction, I will build life anew and quite different from now, much happier, better. All who die in this war will take form again and enjoy this peace." He concluded, informing the women, "Be ready to leave Mehrabad in 25 days. End of Side 2, Lord Meher, Volume 7 and 8. This story in this chapter will be continued on the next tape. Jai Baba.